We are beginning February. Can you believe it already? Whew, here we go. And we're going to be talking about the heart of the soul. That's our theme for the month. The theme for the month. And my talk today is God speaks through the heart. God speaks through the heart. Have you noticed that science of mind can be a little heady, a little intellectual? When we all started with this teaching to begin with, we were learning something really new. Most of us. It wasn't something that we were familiar with. We may have come from another type of teaching, and we came into this and we were hungry. We were thirsting for knowledge. We were studying and learning. It was a lot in the head to switch some of those concepts perhaps that we were raised with to the new thinking, the new thought. So it happens a lot up here, doesn't it? It happens a lot up here. And it's also deeply spiritual. It's deeply spiritual. Ernest Holmes, if you study anything about him, you find how mystical he truly was in his presence and his understanding of all the world's faith traditions, and then compiling this thing he called the science of mind. There's a balance between the intellect and the emotions. That's what the science of mind is teaching us. Because we start out in the heady space, but then we recognize it's got to come into the heart, doesn't it? It's got to come into the heart. And as Reverend Lee said in his meditation this morning, this was not planned, by the way, but the one of the precepts of the science of mind is love is the way, and the law makes the way possible. It's sort of like the law is the operating system, and love is the command. Love is the command. So we have to have both. We have to have that balance between our intellect and understanding of these principles, and yet the embodiment, as Ernest said in the So Much in the Science of Mind. We must embody, wrap on these teachings so that we live them, Our intellect produces the word that we speak in prayer, the words that we say, but yet it's the feeling and the emotions of the prayer that activate the law. And just like love and law are the twin forces of God, God is one, but it operates in those two ways, love and law. The same is true with us. Our intellect and our emotions must become one. As I said, Ernest Holmes is the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living. He's also the author of the Science of Mind that we teach from. And he said, while we admire the intellect, we must realize that the intellect is not the creative factor in the universe. Rather, it is feeling that is creative. It is feeling that is creative, which is probably why little Megan's prayer manifested. She declared it with emotion. She knew it, and look what she found. But what about when all those feelings and emotions get crazy, explode? Something happens, and suddenly we're nothing but a ball of emotions. What about those times? They're out of control. Maybe we've misplaced something. Maybe we're angry. Maybe we have a health challenge that we've just been made aware of. What happens when those things happen is we have a tendency to have blinders on, and we can't think straight. We can't see the bigger picture all of a sudden. We're myopically focused on what that is right in front of us, that our emotions have us tied to. Have you ever lost your ability to think straight? Have you ever been blinded by rage? Blinded by love? Whatever that might be? Yeah, we've all had those experiences in our lives. I know I have. We think much better when we're calm, cool, and collected. Yes? Yes. Think of a time that you misplaced something. Usually we panic, particularly if it's important. Let's see, recent experiences. Particularly if it's something that's important to us, right? My keys. The other day, I went to get my car keys to go to work. I was running a little bit late, so I was in a hurry, and they weren't there. I always put them in the same place because I know where they're going to be the next day, right? I have to think about it, autopilot. But they weren't there. I checked the car. They weren't there. I checked the usual places, the pockets of the jacket that I wore the night before, my pants pockets. Looked around, didn't see them. Called Ron, said, "Hey, did you pick up my keys by accident?" I was like, "No, I don't have your keys." Well, now I'm panicked. I'm late. I can't find my keys. I'm late for a meeting. Where are my keys? I'm mad at myself because I didn't put them where I was supposed to put them. I'm frustrated. I'm afraid. Because not only is that my car key, I have a duplicate of that, so it's not the end of the world, but it was all my business keys and my house keys. And my imagination just took off and started creating this scenario of somebody finding those keys and figuring out which buildings they go to. And they go in and they rob all the buildings. Or my house. Oh my gosh. And all those little things that you get discounts with, you scan them, right? I have points. I mean, come on. So all of that's happening here. And I am not calm, cool, and collected. I'm very frustrated. And my emotions are just on the edge. Ever been there? No? We're so emotional that we can't think straight. All of our energy and brain power is supporting fight or flight, fear, right? We're supporting that. Our imagination is fueling these future problems. And all of those are focusing on the problem. Everything's focused on the problem. We're not focused on the solution. We're just mad about what's not there, right? That's not our teaching, is it? That's not our teaching. But let's go deeper on that scenario. Why did I get so emotional in the first place? It's just a set of keys, right? Do I always get that emotional about things? What internal messaging was I sending to myself at that time? Well, I can assure you they were not very positive. I was mad at myself. I was mad at the keys for getting lost. I was mad at my actions, and I was just knew it was just going to be horrible in the future. All the stuff I was going to have to unwind because of those keys and replace, and the people I had to tell had lost their keys. Oh my gosh. I just knew all that was happening. All this negative thought pattern, all these negative thoughts, all this not so healthy stuff, right? I'm pretty sure it took a toll on my physical self as well. I'm sure my blood pressure shot up. My heart was probably racing. I was breathing slow or fast and shallow. And who knows what chemical reactions were happening in my body, right? Imagine sustaining that level of high intensity emotion. It can't be good for us, right? It can't be good for us. All because of the way that I chose to process what happened, how I chose to process those emotions. Rather than talk myself off the ledge, which I've been known to do, sit peacefully and calmly and reflect and recall, where did I have those keys last? Because our minds are powerful, aren't they? We see so much that we don't register in our conscious minds. So much that our minds can absorb that we aren't using on a regular basis. So why would my mind not know where those keys were? I had just spaced it due to my lack of attention, but my mind knew. So I had to sit down and relax and allow that information to come forward again, to tap into my higher wisdom. Because our minds always know, don't they? Nothing's ever lost. Things just get misplaced. Things just get misplaced. I learned that in the jewelry business. Because, a diamond ring would go missing. And it was like, oh my gosh, where did it go? And so we begin to focus on things that way, that it's not missing, it's just misplaced. Let's find where it got misplaced to. It's in the wrong case, the wrong drawer, something. And that was much more powerful search than, oh my God, somebody stole it. So use that. Feel free, use that. So I thank goodness for my spiritual practice, because this is one of the ways, the way really, that we can step back into sanity in those moments of high emotions when we're triggered by something exciting happening in our lives. These are the practical tools that we can use to wrangle our emotions. Because either end of the spectrum with our emotions can present challenges to us physiologically, in our thinking and everything, right? If we're really, really, really sad, if we're really, really, really happy, we sort of lose our balance and our equilibrium. So keeping ourselves on that spectrum can be more healthy physiologically to us, mentally to us, and spiritually to us. It's kind of the Buddhist teaching, right? It's kind of the Buddhist teaching of balance. Now, I know most of us have a meditation practice, and we've learned to listen for the still small voice of spirit. We recognize that over the monkey chatter, if you will, of our mind and running away and doing things that it loves to do. But we've realized what that is. We have a relationship with that. But we can still, can we find that? Can we exit the high emotion? Can we find that place of stillness within us when things are exploding, when emotions are high, when we're in fear, when we're in extreme joy, when we've lost something, we're angry, we're frustrated? Can we find that place of center at that time? Well, we can when we remember. Is anybody like me and forgets sometimes that we have that powerful toolbox that we can just open up and go, tap into universal intelligence, find my keys? No, we'd rather run around and scream and holler, where are my keys? Who took my keys? I can't find my keys. Oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end. Where are my keys? But we can choose the other way. We can choose the other way. And that's the importance of having a daily practice, building a daily habit so that it becomes our go-to. It becomes that place where we know we can simply step into in the rush and the craziness of life and find center, find solution, not focus on problems, but focus on solution. It becomes automatic. I remember when I first became, but shortly after I became a licensed practitioner, I remember driving on the 101 and seeing a big, huge accident. And my initial reaction was prayer. And I thought, wow, that's a change. Because usually our reaction is, ooh, that looks bad. I hope everybody's okay. Or something else. But when my go-to reaction became prayer, I was like, okay, I've changed. I've changed. And that's what we look for in this idea of jumping, moving, going to center when life gets tumultuous for us, when things get stirred up, when our emotions get roiling. Can I get back to center? Can I find my balance? Our Book of the Month authors, Zukov and Francis, discuss how we process energy internally. We either do that through love and trust, or we do it through doubt and fear. Through love and trust or doubt and fear. These are based on the beliefs, the experiences, the perceptions that we have, right? Is how we're going to choose to experience those things. So we can choose to respond in anger, or we can choose to respond inquisitively, with curiosity. to a situation. We can choose to respond with resistance, or we can choose to respond with openness. And again, inquire. Depending on the filter that we're using is going to determine the results that we experience. If we're filtering all of life through doubt and fear, what happens? We're going to receive more to doubt and fear about. If we're filtering through love and trust, we're going to receive more love and trust, more to love and trust in our lives. So it's the mirror effect, it's law of correspondence, and it's this idea of our choice to process emotion. Now, a lot of times we don't think we have a choice. I'm just emotional. It's just the way it is. I have to do it this way. That's who I am. And that's all true. We all are emotional at different levels. But the question is, how is that serving me? If it's serving you the way that it's working, great. If it's not, these are some tools that you can use to shift or transform it a little bit. The authors suggest that emotions are to the mind like symptoms are to the body. Information. Think about that. Emotions are to the mind as symptoms are to the body. Information. We know that to change anything in our lives, that we first must become aware that we want or even need something to change. Would you agree? Because a lot of times we're not even aware that something's going on, that we need to change our eating habits or shopping habits or something. We're not aware, but when we become aware, then we can make and effectuate those changes. And the best way to do this is by becoming an observer of our lives. Now, an observer of our lives is that which is watching what it is we do, what we say, how we be, how we show up in the world. The observer is that person, that part of us that is our higher self, that is watching what's happening. It's not the actual doingness. We do at one level and we observe at another. So when we can become that observer of our lives, we begin to see, oh my gosh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? How did that happen? Or wow, that was really cool. You did a great job back there. Right? And in the moment, we may not be aware that we're doing a great thing right there, but as the observer, we can be very aware of it and appreciate it. So we notice the information being provided to us through the feedback of our emotions and our body symptoms. And when I say body symptoms, I'm not just talking about medical symptoms, things that are wrong. Think about when you get nervous. If I ask you to come up and grab the microphone and speak, you might get butterflies, right? You might get butterflies. We just have to get them flying in formation, that's all. But maybe your hands get sweaty. When I was in grade school, one of the guys in my class just had the sweatiest palms. I mean, you didn't want to hold hands with him in the circles, right? Because he just had sweaty palms. It's like, wow. So sweaty palms is a sign of nervousness, right? We turn red in the face when we get embarrassed. Maybe we get tension in our shoulders if we get angry or stressed. Maybe we have that gut reaction to certain information or things that happen. So our body has symptoms of our emotions. Like I said, when I got upset about my keys, my body was acting out. It was, my heart was racing and all sorts of things were happening. I wasn't as present to those as maybe sometimes when I get embarrassed and feel my cheeks burn, right? We're kind of present to that. Our emotions outpicture through our bodies. The alchemy of transformation begins in our mind, but it lives in our hearts. It starts in our mind, but it lives in our hearts. Just like the science of mind started in our minds, but as we move it into our hearts, that's when we begin to live the teaching. That's when we begin to live the teaching. There's a Sioux Indian expression that says the longest journey in your life is from your head to your heart. You may have heard it as the 18 inches, from here to there, but from your head to your heart. And that's what we do in the science of mind. We make that journey together. We come in and we learn the basics of foundations, where we've got all the overview of what's happening in the science of mind. And we start to teach a few of the spiritual practices on the surface level. And then we go deeper as we teach more and more classes. We go deeper and deeper and deeper into this, to where it becomes totally embodied in the heart, the mind, the life. It's the life that we live. When we are embodying this teaching and moving it deeper into our heart, that's when we begin to experience the love that God is. We talk about God is all there is, God is love, love is God. But until we experience that love, then we're having the full embodiment experience of it. The meditation practice that we create in our lives is a superhighway between the head and the heart. It's the way that we can connect more quickly, more efficiently, more effectively, by spending time in the stillness, by spending time in the quiet. It's a place where Spirit speaks through our hearts. And the best way to hear that voice is to be still. Be still and know that I am God. Simply stated, that means we surrender. We surrender all of our doing, all of our micromanaging, all of our hands-on stuff. We surrender, we let go. And we rest in the divine presence. Just rest. Doesn't that sound good? Just rest. No longer the universal police, no longer having to rule everything. Just rest in the divine presence. We open our hearts to God. The heart of our soul is the place where remembrance and connection occurs for the love that God is, we are. Be still and know God. The psalm this is from reminds us that even in the midst of chaos, we can choose to be still and know Spirit's love. We can find our peace. When it seems that mountains are crumbling and the world is collapsing, personally or globally, we can still find peace within ourselves when we remember to go within. We all face bumpy moments, days, weeks, years perhaps. But being prepared with our spiritual tools that support us allows us to treat and move our feet. To treat and move our feet, because that's what we do. That's one of our tools. And we move through the shadows and the darkness, and we move back into the light to a brighter tomorrow. We become the ready first responders of our own lives. That's why we practice, so that we're ready every day for whatever comes. We're prepared for life's adventures, its challenges, and finding our darn keys. So if you want to study these practices and embody them in your life, we have a newsletter that comes out on Monday mornings that is a summary of today's talk, has some quotes and the practices in detail that you can then use to apply to your life during the week, throughout the week, so that these practices and principles are applicable to you, and you're embodying them. You're making that journey from the head to the heart. It's called Mindful Monday. You can sign up in the lobby. You can use the QR code or send an email, and we'll get you added to the list. All right, number 1 is practicing the presence. Let God in more deeply. What if we decided to truly open to the divine? To truly open to the divine, make it welcome. When we become still and listen long enough, we'll hear the voice of the heart. Are we willing to be still long enough? Are we willing to be still long enough? To wait, to move away from the surface of our mind? Because that's what happens, right? When we start meditating, it's like everything starts happening. We have to let that settle and get quiet. So it takes a little time sometimes. It takes a little time. This week, whatever your meditation practice is, I'm going to invite you to commit to being still for 10 or 15 minutes every morning, at least. Don't listen to music. Don't listen to a recorded guided meditation or anything like that. Don't read. Just be still. Let your mind wander where it goes. Bring it back to your breath. Just focus on your breath. Keep bringing it back. Set your alarm so you know when it's time to go to work. But commit to spending that time. See what happens. See what happens. Be present and notice is our second one. Be present and notice. Use your journal to record your life this week. Your life. How about that? What's going on? What are you thinking about? How was your day? Who did you run into? What were your interactions with them? How did you feel about it? Truly do an autobiography of yourself and everything that happens this week. Get in touch with who you be and what you be doing, what you be up to. What you be up to. Practice being the observer of your life, of your thoughts, and of your actions. When we do that consciously, we can then begin to see where things might not be working or where they're working really good, right? And what we focus on expands. So notice when you're present and when you're on autopilot. All right. So it was Ralph Waldo Emerson who said, let us be silent. Let us be silent so we may hear the whisper of the gods. Am I on? Okay, cool. So I invite you to join me this week in the silence and rest. All right, so it is. It's your turn. Penny. Penny.
Not for sure where it comes from, but I have to be on time. Maybe it's to get at. Even when I'm traveling from road trip from here to Oregon, I'm gonna be on time. I'm gonna be exactly when I say I am. Don't know where that came from. So this morning, I let myself sleep in, and then I left my house a little bit late, but it's fine. And then the roads were closed around my condo because there was a race. So it was funny because my first reaction, I'm going to be late, was going to text Jill, tell her I'm going to be late. But I don't need to do that. I can be late. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It was really funny, but I caught myself doing it. It's like, it's okay. Just, drive there, get there when you get there, and it's all good. What? Yeah, I know. It was great. It was great. 'Cause I had to go way out of my road to get here. I got here on time. But it was funny because even on the way here, it's like, I'm going to need to calm down when I first get here so that I can focus. It was weird. It was weird, but I was aware of it and it was fine. And actually, I got here on time. So, yeah, weird.
I would call it breakthrough.
Hi, good morning. I loved what you said about journaling your day. Um, I recently spent an amazing week at Canyon Ranch down in Tucson. Probably one of the best things I've ever done for myself. One of the classes that I took was about journaling for mental health. And she said something that made a whole bunch of sense because, we decide we're going to start journaling. We go out, we get a really pretty leather bound journal, and I'm going to write in it every day. But you're dealing with a lot of crap. And you don't want to put that in that pretty book, because you're not going to leave that for somebody to read, right? But you need to write to process, right? She said, don't do that. Save that for when you're going to write your memoirs. She said, just get yourself a notebook and do your processing journaling in your notebook. Write whatever the heck wants to show up and get it out. Write it till it's done. And then you can tear it up and throw it away.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Brene Brown talks about that, how you get all the icky stuff out first and just dump it. Just dump it. Get it off your chest. And then you can start writing your good stuff. Thank you, Patrice. Who else? All right, there's another little piece of that story. I was so upset and so unfocused that I actually got in the car, used the alternate key, got in the car, and drove to the restaurant we had been to the night before and searched their parking lot to see if I'd dropped the keys in the parking lot. I would have gone inside, but they weren't open yet. I was going to go back. I went to another appointment. I came back home, and as I came in the house, I finally sat down. I finally sat down, and I said, "What'd you do with those keys?" And I saw very clearly in my mind that I had deposited them in my purse, where I never put my keys. So they were in the bottom of my purse. I went to the restaurant. Who's next? What else you got? Yes.
I just think it's really funny and fitting that your story this morning was about keys, because the very first time I think I ever met Patrice, like 10 years ago, we were at a party at Jennifer's house, and I was freaking out because I lost my keys, and I had driven my partner and I there, and I was running all around, and I could clearly see, I didn't stop, but I could clearly see the cabinet I had set them on. And we brought like a cake or something, and when we put the cake down, and that was when I finally said, I swear I put them on this counter. And Jen's like, well, there's a garbage can right here. And when we set the cake down, they had slid, and Patrice, bless her heart, went out and dug through the trash that had already been taken out and found my keys in the trash bag. So that's why we were all laughing this morning when you started talking about keys. And then last night I was at Jennifer's house again, and she was missing a remote control. But I think it's just, it's a good lesson for all of us to just, we know, and it's not just about keys. There's always something that's bothering us, and we know the answer if we just slow down and listen. It's there. So
That's the point. There it is. All right. Who else? Comments, questions? Lori?
I want to share a beautiful image in the Ayurvedic science. We just have this concept that the heart is the root of the mind. And sometimes just to kind of take that visual inside, it can help to reconnect and to understand that even when it doesn't seem like it, because the mind thinks it's the boss, we can drop in and note that connection. There's actually a pranic flow, the flow of prana, one of the vayus in the body, moves from the chest to the head, from the heart to the mind. So I think that knowing that we can, putting attention on it will create it and help our minds be more governed by our hearts.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Share something. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm Jeff, by the way. I'm Nancy's brother and Carl's brother-in-law. This years ago. I was driving down the road, and there was someone on my bumper. I mean, they were just really close, and I was like getting more and more and more worked up. Now, this is kind of like you were talking about filters and things like that. And I was, and then I got to thinking, and I'm like I'm now, perspiring, and I'm like getting almost in a rage, right? Because this guy is so close on my bumper, and I think he's going to run into me. And then I thought, this guy doesn't know that he's doing this to me. I'm doing this all to myself, right? And I'm getting all worked up. And so I said, wait a minute. This is ridiculous, right? So I said, wait a minute. This guy is not going to make me crazy. I'm going to think about it differently. I'm going to say, this guy's my best friend, and he's following me home, and he's I want him to stay as close as he can so I don't lose him. And I was able to just relax and enjoy the fact that this guy was riding on my bumper. Right? And it's like, it's a paradigm shift, right? And you can control your emotions like that and just change the way you think, and your body just responds. So I just share that. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, totally. We can reframe things in our lives from old stuff to current stuff and create new, can't we? We've got powerful minds that way. Yeah. Who else? Anyone else?
About a song that Jen and I were listening to yesterday, and it reminded me when you were talking about the car, because that bothers me too. But there was a line in this song that said, "When you're in a race that you can't win, slow down." And I find that when people are up on my bumper, I just slow down. I'm like, you just go right on around. It's fine.
All right. One final one. Anyone else?
Thank you. So, speaking of slowing down, since I am now retired, I realized that as I've attained this age, I hopefully have attained some wisdom. Now, I have some good habits in place. Early is on time, and on time is late. But I leave home in with sufficient time to get there and be able to get a cup of coffee or go to the bathroom. I was going somewhere with this story. Oh, as a retired person, I realized that we we um we don't usually have to be in a hurry because we're not going anywhere that's that important. And that's why when you see the people with the lighter hair driving and you go, they're driving like an old person. Well, I've become that old person and I go the speed limit or maybe 5 miles an hour over, but I don't need to be in that much of a hurry. I don't need to drive myself that crazy. So, thank you for that, Patrice.
Choices, 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 right? Yeah. Thank you all for sharing. I appreciate your wisdom as always, and we will continue our Q&A as we continue to move through February. All right. Would you join me for prayer this morning? Oh, let's just take a breath. Yeah. Bring our awareness present to this moment. Right here, right now. Feel the seat supporting us. And just feel the breath moving through us. In that still space is where we find spirit. The infinite presence, the infinite love, the joy, the harmony. It is intelligence and it is love. Love and law. God is all. It is that which has created all that is, and the Creator is in the creation. And so I know that this is my creation, and that I am of that divine substance, the one substance that there is, and that I am that love, that peace, that harmony, joy, intelligence, wisdom. And as I know this for myself, I know that for each one of us that's gathered here today, knowing that we are each unified in this wholeness that is God, in this oneness. We are each that love that God is. And all of that divine presence is right here, right now, in, through, and as us, in this room, filling it to capacity. There is no spot where God is not. And so knowing that, knowing our unity in that one, knowing that all of God is right here now present, I speak my word for and about each of us. knowing, claiming, and accepting this day, the beauty of life as it unfolds through us, as peace and as harmony, as balance, as joy, as perfect relationship, as perfect health, as the divine flow of good, of financial flow, of good things, great things happening in our lives, of all that our dreams are made of, coming forward as the universe conspires on our behalf in this moment to bring forward those desires on our heart, those things which we declare as being ours now. I know that Spirit lives in this place of our hearts, speaks to our hearts as we connect with the One in the One, as we spend our time this week in meditation and silent contemplation of Spirit, of our relationship with it. I know for anyone that has anything on their heart today, as they lift that into the consciousness of this prayer in this room with each of these beloveds, that we collectively hold each other in the light, in the love, knowing the wholeness and the perfection of the divine unfolding through each of us. Whatever needs to be healed is healed, revealed is revealed with great clarity, that there is financial abundance, joy, peace, and loving relationships. And knowing that's how life works, my heart is filled with gratitude and thanksgiving as I release this prayer into the action of that law, which is the way we know, affirm, and claim in this moment that this is so, and affirm, and so it is.